Feather the Redeemed versus Polukranos the World Eater. I'd never seen this commander. I've never seen this commander play before. I don't think I actually knew that Polukranos was legendary. That we will keep because we can get into a turn 2 Smothering Tithe. And that sounds like a great idea to me. This will actually fix our red mana until we get into some mountains. It'll actually give us double white for feather as well. There's a gutter snipe. We'll go for a plains and just throw it over to our opponent, I think. Do we need a mana crypt on turn 1? I don't think so. We could go for open the armory and grab ourselves a sword or a jitte. I think we're okay to leave it right now. Green getting into ramp in the early game, so we will attempt to catch up to them with our Smothering Tithe next turn. Hoping to draw into a mountain. No, we don't, so that's 2 bad draws we've had. We haven't gotten into any extra lands. Hopefully the Smothering Tithe sticks around long enough to give us our mana fixing. Polukranos World Eater was in my Nissa Vastwood Seer deck. I don't know if it's still in there or not. But it's a 4 mana 5/5 with Monstrosity X, the mana cost of that being XX green. When it becomes monstrous, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures your opponent controls. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Polukranos. And down comes our opponent's commander. Feather the Redeemed is a 3 mana Boros commander, a 3/4 flying angel. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets a creature you control, you get it back into your hand at the beginning of the next end step. Now, let's keep everything crossed for a land. Nope, it's just Vanguard of Brimaz. I think we better go for and open the armory. And then because our opponent's in green, how about we go for a Sword of Feast and Famine. And we'll go for red into... Do we want Gutter Snipe or Young Pyromancer? I think Young Pyromancer because it will generate some chump blockers. Green is likely to get into Trample, but we don't see any on the board yet. They've got 5 cards left in hand. And are they deciding to pay for the Smothering Tithe here? They are. We can equip the Sword of Feast and Famine next turn. We can play and equip the Sword of Feast and Famine next turn if we get into a land. Smothering Tithe has been paid for, so... Oh, and they're going for the Monstrosity on Polukranos. I didn't think they would tap out to do that so quickly. Once it's become monstrous, it can't become monstrous again. They've just put 3 into that, so it will put 1+ counter onto Polukranos and hit us for 6. Oh, and they've kept us off a Gilded Lotus as well. There is absolutely nothing we can do there, is there? We'll just have to play out the sword. And I imagine they will just pay for the Smothering Tithe and continue to hit us with Polukranos because they only need to smack us 3 more times with that. And they are going to pay for Smothering Tithe. Obviously they can see how much we're struggling on mana. Urza's Mine comes down, and they're nowhere near assembling Tron, luckily. They go for more mana in Solemn Simulacrum. And hitting us again for 6. We've only got a couple of turns to actually start trying to do something here. Alright, a Cavern of Souls, naming what? I think we have to name Angel, really. And then we'll go for the Gilded Lotus. I think we have to try and quickly get as much mana into play as possible. And then we'll hold up the Valorous Stance. That is going to destroy a target creature with toughness 4 or greater. No doubt they'll pay for Smothering Tithe again, as they should. Now green does have some means of giving hexproof at instant speed, and if this is more of a Voltron build, then they may have something like that. We've got to play to our outs, and we'll go for Valorous Stance here to get rid of Polukranos. If they play a land or some more mana of some kind, then they can get down their commander again, but fingers crossed they can't, because that will take them yet another turn to get it down next turn and take the Summoning Sickness away from that. But they get down another land, so that means that they can get down their commander again if they want to. It'll also knock the monstrosity off it, so they can go for that if they want to. Now we can go for Feather and put a Sword of Feast and Famine onto it. And that will give it protection from green, meaning it can't be targeted. We hit lucky by and finally get into a mountain, and we dodge the Mana Crypt Bolt. I think we go for... we'll go in for our commander. We will use Tech Edge to go for the... and then we might as well get a Gutter Snipe out as well. And I'll probably actually trade with the Solemn if they swing in with that. The Feather is going to chump the Polukranos. Polukranos might just hit Gutter Snipe so that they can get the Solemn through. And they're at a point now where they might not pay for Smothering Tithe because our mana is eventually fixed after 7 turns. But it looks like they are paying for it. And down comes Ramunap, which goes hand in hand with a Misty Rainforest. They can play lands from their graveyard, so they won't miss a land drop for the rest of the game, but I think their mana is ahead of ours now, isn't it? No, we're actually at the same mana, at 9 mana, but ours is a bit more clunky, and it took way too long to get it going. Okay, and they decided not to do Monstrosity. They can do it at instant speed, I think, so that might be what they're after. And they decided not to swing in either, so let's go for Tails on that. We win the flip. Now we can deal 5 damage to our opponent, and that will make this do 5 damage. We'll be able to go... and then we'll be able to go 2 damage onto Solemn, 1 onto Feather, and 2 onto our opponent with the Impact Resonance. Oh no, it's just creatures it deals damage to. Okay. Let's go in with Vanguard of Brimaz. And then we'll swing in with Feather. This will force our opponent to discard a card, and it'll get 5 damage onto them to make the Impact Resonance better. In fact, it doesn't do anything until we do deal some damage to our opponent. They discarded a Forest, so let's go for our Impact Resonance. And we can actually go after Polukranos here, can't we? Yeah, the problem is they can put 3 mana into Polukranos to put a plus counter on it, and that will put it out of range. It can't kill any of our stuff, though. Let's target the Vanguard and the Solemn. And because we're targeting the Vanguard, not only will we get our... oh yeah, this is the problem. Alright, scratch that. Let's go for the sword onto the Vanguard of Brimaz. And let's try and encourage them to activate Polukranos. Okay, they don't go for that, so let's, in that case, go for the Impact Resonance. We'll put 2 damage on there. And we can only do it to creatures, so we'll just put 2 damage on Ramunap. And because we're targeting a creature we control, we will get that card back, thanks to Feather. Gutter Snipe will deal 2 damage to our opponent, and Vanguard of Brimaz, thanks to it being targeted, will give us a cat token with Vigilance. They get to draw a card with Solemn. We got rid of Solemn there because it is not affected by the Sword of Feast and Famine. And they're probably going to draw a card eventually from that anyway. Now if they pay for this, then they can't Monstrous Polukranos, which means at our end step, I'd be tempted to go after... yeah, I think we can go after Polukranos at the end of our turn here. So in that case, we get the impact resonance back. It means that we don't have it during our opponent's turn, but it doesn't actually do anything during our opponent's turn anyway. Let's go for 5 damage onto Polukranos. And we won't get that back because we are not targeting one of our own creatures, but I don't want to deal with Polukranos here. My opponent is more than welcome to replay that if they want to. I think it will cost 8 for them to do that now. They can play a snow-covered forest from the graveyard thanks to Ramunap. And there we go, typical in a mono-green ramp deck. Getting into Eldrazi. This is Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Whenever you cast it, you draw 4 cards. It's a 12/12 with Annihilator 4. And when it's put into the graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles it and the graveyard into the library. I doubt we are going to draw into anything that will deal with Kozilek. We at least get a bunch of treasure tokens, but I think we've been too slow this game, and we haven't gotten into any card draw stuff either, so we've been pretty unlucky. Took us an age to get our mana fixed, and like I said, we didn't get into any card draw either, so I think it was well fought and we started to stabilise, but this game is pretty much over as far as I can tell. See if we get bolted by our Mana Crypt. We can only take 2 more lightning bolts from this. We lose the flip and get bolted. Let's go for Clifftop Retreat. We can sack some treasure tokens in response to Kozilek coming in. Let's put the sword onto Feather. And I'm going to swing in here. In response, I'm going to tap down this land and tech edge the Urza's Mine, just to take them down a mana. I don't think it's relevant, but you never know, it might be. And now when Kozilek swings in, we're actually going to sacrifice the Mana Crypt, I think, because then we don't have to worry about getting lightning bolted by that. Let's go for the Sword of Fire and Ice onto the Vanguard of Brimaz. We're going to rely on that for chump blockers against the Kozilek. And we'll pass over like that. A Sol Ring from Polukranos. And a Monstrous Onslaught. X damage divided as you choose amongst any number of target creatures, where X is the greatest power amongst creatures you control as you cast this spell. So that takes care of everything apart from the Vanguard of Brimaz, which we are going to have to block with. And I am almost certain that that takes us out of the game. A Titania is definitely a means of going wide on us. Getting back the Misty Rainforest so that they can sacrifice it and get themselves into a 5/3 elemental. They're going to force us to block the Kozilek and take us down to 1. We will sack the Mana Crypt and 3 treasures. And yeah, par for the course in this game. That won't help us at all. Let's just get down our commander for the fun of it. Now what our opponent should do is just swing in straight away and go wide on us. Actually, what we could do... Yeah, there's nothing we can do, is there? Because, yeah, our opponent is going wide on us. I was just thinking about Long Road Home. We could have exiled the Kozilek and brought it back at the end step, but they're still going wide with Titania and Ramunap anyway. At the beginning of their upkeep, I'll show them that we have Long Road Home. And now we have 0 cards in hand, and they have every chance to just swing in and go wide at us. But they've decided to counter that. This spell costs 7 less to cast. If it targets a spell or ability, that is targeting a creature you control with power 7 or greater. So that will counter the long road home. Don't know if I've ever seen anyone play Not of This World, so this is clearly a typical green Eldrazi deck. We have no cards in hand, so there is no need for you to pay for Smothering Tithe. I'm giving our opponent every chance to get on with it and swing in. And they go straight through to attacks. So they are going to definitely go wide on us here. We will sack 4 lands to the Annihilator. And we'll take down that filthy Raminap with us. And there we are, getting taken out by Polukranos, World Eater. Managed to keep that off the field a few times, but Feather the Redeemed came down too late, and even if we had got her down earlier, we didn't have any cards that were any good really. We needed to get into some cantrip spells and try and keep our hand full, but this just turned out to be a typical Boros deck where you try and rush and just end up with an empty hand. Hope you all found some enjoyment from it anyway. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.